Hi, my name is Jayoza. I teach, mentor, and coach people on public speaking so that they can get winning high stakes speeches, whether it's for a job interview, for a business meeting, or in front of a large audience at a conference. Today I'm going to give you a speaking tip, but this has more to do with the conversation. I believe that you have to become good at having conversation. That's where everything starts. And the question I always get is, but how do I get into a conversation with people? Well, you have to try. There are no easy answers for that, but there are some ways that I use that I have found to be very effective. And truth be told, I was never good at conversing with people. But lately, I have been getting feedback from people saying, hey, Jay, you're a very good at having conversations with strangers. So, what is your secret? And I said, well, I really don't have a secret. It's work. I work at it. So let me just give you a simple example of what I mean. I go for a walk on weekends at a park, and the weather has been cold lately. And this particular park that I go to, they have a huge fireplace, and the park rangers come and put the wood to keep the fireplace going, the fire burning. So after my walk, I go to this loft and I sit there, reading or listening to a podcast or an audiobook or whatever. And the ranger came and he put some wood into the fireplace. So the first thing I did was I just made a comment because he's a ranger. I don't know him, never met him, never talked to him before. The one thing that I see is that he has a job to keeping that fireplace going. So I made a comment. I said, hey, I bet you with, he put a big log and he said, I bet you with that you won't have to come back in a while. Just an observation, something that he just did. And at that point, either he's going to bite or he's going to just say yes and leave for whatever reason. At that point, if he did that, then it means that he's definitely a conversation ender, not a conversation extender. But as it turned out, this ranger said he heard me and obviously he listened and he said, no, you'd be surprised. He said, that thing is only going to last not for that long. I said, oh, really? But I said, that's such a big log. He said, no, no, no. With fireplace, you got to know a lot about the kind of wood. And and then he went on and he said, like, the woods that produce nuts, they tend to be the solid. They burn the longest. And I learned quite a bit. And he goes back and he brings different wood and he's showing me. Like he said, look, this one isn't going to burn. It's going to burn pretty quickly, but this one is going to take a long time. And I was just making a conversation, and suddenly I got to know a little bit about different things about the wood that he was explaining. And then he was explaining that this year they just don't have enough rangers to cut the trees and the right kind of trees so that the fireplace gets the right kind of wood, different kinds of wood that they have in the park. And and we conversed for almost an hour. And what happens is when you're having a conversation, you start with something neutral that the other person should know. That's his expertise, and show some interest in that. From that, it could lead to anything. Then it's up to you. Now you are getting more and more information from him, and you show your curiosity and say, "But oh, how to?" And at some point, you have to also be very careful. And this is the part that a lot of people are not good at. And this took me a while. They just think that all they have to do is just keep asking questions, questions, questions. That's not a good strategy when you're having a conversation. At some point, you got to give that person a break too. And you want to know whether that person has any kind of curiosity about you. He may not, but at least you got to give them a break and an opportunity. So I said, you know, I didn't know that, and it's kind of sad because I have a fireplace in my house which I've never used, and that's true. I've never used a fireplace. We just I've never we're just not fireplace people, I guess. And I said, you know, now that you got me thinking, I'm wondering that I had an opportunity to know all this, but I never took advantage of it. So I just shared something not important, but something to the ranger, and he can work with it and do whatever. And I said one of the reason is the chimney cleanup and all that. I said I didn't want to deal with all that, you know. So I was kind of, and I said the chimney, I've heard that it's such a mess, and there's just nobody out there who can really do a good job, and it's a scam industry. And I said I didn't want to do all that, so I said forget it. It's not something I'm interested in. It's the maintenance and all that. So I just never used it. Anyway, that's just my story. He can do whatever he wants. But then we shifted from that one conversation regarding fireplace. We talked about, hey, as it turned out, this ranger had worked in the pharmaceutical industry for over 25 years. Then he, in fact, even gave me a recommendation of a dermatologist that he knows is a real good one, because a lot of people, I don't know how that came up, but I think there was another woman there who brought that up. So from one thing led to another, to another, to another, and in a sense, we spoke for 1 hour. As it turned out, his name was Dennis, and it's Dennis the Ranger. And afterwards, I started thinking. I said, you know, having a good conversation isn't really that difficult, but it does require some kind of a strategy that you got to have. And the strategy is, don't go with any agenda. There should be no agenda in having a conversation. Conversation is one of those things that you start with it and it can go in any direction, and then it's up to you. How are you going to handle that conversation? Which direction do you want to go? What information do you want to share? You know, and also at the same time, make sure that the person can leave anytime he wants to. So keep asking, hey, I understand if you're busy, you know, I should let you go. And if he says, oh, no, 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 I can talk, you know, I mean, I don't want to keep you busy, you have to also make sure that you're not taking this person's time, and say, listen, I'll meet you at another time, etc. So there is a technique in having a conversation where you want to make sure the person is actually enjoying having a conversation with you. So to end this, there are simple rules. One is be observant and ask a question and show some curiosity. And if the person is forthcoming with information, then perhaps you should share information. Say, oh, you know, this is something, and compliment the person for sharing that information. Oh, you know, I really learned something interesting. And people like to be complimented, because let's face it, how often do you even get a compliment these days? So one of the things I always try to tell people to do, there are 3 things that cost you nothing that you should be very liberal when it comes to using. Smile. You know, smile doesn't cost you anything. That makes the other person feel that you're approachable. Compliment is very important. An apology. If you did something wrong, just apologize. You know, hey, I'm sorry to keep you waiting. Some people don't like to apologize. I'm not one of them. I think apology shows that you have some caring. You care about how other person feels, and people like that. And people like to be complimented. Go to any place, whatever somebody's doing something well. Don't compliment on stupid things. Compliment on things that you've observed, that you noticed, that nobody else is noticing. So it could be somebody's doing a very good job at something. Could be somebody. Um, an example. One time I went to Dunkin' Donuts, and I ordered a small cup. Somehow for small cup they use paper cup, and for medium they use styrofoam. So small cup, it was a hot coffee, and I said, oh, why do you do that? You don't use styrofoam cup when it's a small size. I guess the reason is they want you to buy the mid size, so they're making you burn for some reason. And the cashier just suddenly took another cup and put it right underneath it. And I said, you know, you're very thoughtful. And I complimented her because she did something that I thought solved my problem. And I complimented her, and she felt good about it. And it could be anybody. It could be somebody doing the most simplest task to somebody doing some complex task. Compliment doesn't cost you anything. Be sparing with compliments. So that's basically all it is when it comes to conversation. And the last thing I'll say is you gotta have more of it. Don't be afraid. At the end, what is somebody gonna do? You're gonna call the police on you? Okay, tell the police I apologize, and they'll let you go. But just have a conversation where it's a cashier. And sometimes when there's a limited amount of time, you're actually in a better position to have a conversation. Like just when I was at Costco, cashier mentioned something about Wizard of Oz, and I said, that's a great movie. There's so much to learn. And I was probably there for no more than 5 minutes, and we had a good conversation just related to that movie based on the comments she made to the previous person who was ahead of me. And we had a pretty conversation while she was scanning my items. And when I was done, I said, "Hey, I enjoyed talking to you," and I left. That's it. These things you got to get good at, because if you're good at that, that means that when you are in a business situation, you'll be natural and you'll be able to extract more information, whether it's in a business setting. And one thing I'll tell you is that you never know that person you're having a conversation who they know. So it is very important to have conversations. And for a number of things, conversation makes you feel good, and it also makes the other person feel good. And let's face it, if you can make somebody feel good, you achieved something for that day. So have conversation and enjoy having conversation. And after a while, you'll become natural. I'm working at it. I think I'm close, but hey, you got to keep working at it. This is like a muscle. You got to keep doing it. Okay? So I hope you're having good conversation with strangers and also with people that you know, but specifically with strangers, because there is no expectation. The expectation is so low that just having a conversation, boom, raises you can win with anybody when their expectation is so low. It's just impossible to lose. And if they don't want to have a conversation, hey, they're entitled to that, right? So go ahead and enjoy having conversation, and I think you'll have a good day. Thank you for watching.